I forget.
Okay. You all consent to being recorded? Cool. Okay.
You'll mostly just be up in that little invisible box.
I'll send you an NDA.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, perfect.
Let me
I don't
click
know
on
if I'm in Europe though, so I don't know if that stuff applies, but we can try it.
Totally different. Yeah, this is a music business class. As you would guess, we're like halfway through the semester. There's about half of the class here right now. Maybe the other half was excited that there was a guest that they could watch later on the recording rather than come to class. So, but yeah, kind of a mix of backgrounds. We have a couple, well, we have one jazz musician. We have a couple singers in various styles, aspiring piano player, rock guitar players. And that's generally the makeup of the class. So it's a pretty like mixed program here.
Very cool.
Yeah. But we have talked. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, no. I was gonna say I love that. I love that it's a diversified.
Yeah, it's not like it's not a cutthroat jazz program where everyone wants to cut each other all the time. It's a different vibe.
It's too bad. No. So what kinds of things have you covered? So I mean, I have ideas about. I mean, I have a plan here to talk about. But what have you done so far?
Let me get the cursor off your face.
Okay, and, I can move if that's better.
A lot of stuff. We did talk about email marketing a little bit, but like I was telling them, I use ConvertKit and pay the monthly fee, but I only send about one email every 2 months. So I'm not maximizing my email usage right now. So we haven't gone in too deep on that. We did talk a little bit about email funnels and things, but not a ton. Otherwise, we've covered, what else have we covered?
Licensing.
We did a lot on, we learned a lot about sync licensing a couple weeks ago, which was news to me. That's like a whole world of things to learn about. Yeah, PROs, BMI, which is, I think, right across the street. Their main office is like, you can see it from here. We're in the World Trade Center, like Plaza.
Okay.
Yeah, like I don't even know if you've seen the Oculus, have you? It's like this spiky stick horse looking thing.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like you can see it right now. That's where we are.
Okay.
And where are you?
I'm in Vienna right now.
Oh, you're in Austria.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not Vienna, Virginia, but yeah, I've lived here for the last, 3.5 years now, and I just moved, so I'm right in the city center, which is cool. Yeah, this plot of land is like 1,000 years old, so that's just like the time span that we're dealing with here.
And what's your day-to-day right now?
So it's pretty mixed. I teach at a university in Graz. It's actually the oldest jazz program in Europe, which is pretty cool. So I'm teaching all levels of ear training and ensembles and music theory on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So I take the train down there. It's like 2.5 hours. And then Monday and Thursday, I teach online. And then otherwise, I'm doing some tours and gigging. Still kind of managing the publishing company a little bit on the side and doing a lot of recording and mixing lately too. So the bulk of it is teaching, and it's like my online business, and then kind of just creating time for the creative projects and making sure that I'm not doing too many sort of frivolous little things, because it can be so easy to just, I don't know, especially in a big town, like to do all these little gigs and take on all these projects and then realize that there's no time to take care of business actually. So
yeah. So okay, because that's even a busier teaching load than I have, I feel like. So yeah, it's hard to find time for your personal projects. We were just talking about one of the other things we talked about is grants. Here, the faculty can apply for a grant every year to do a record, which is nice.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I actually looked at Graz. What's the name of the music school?
Yeah, it's like the Kunstuniversität in Graz. It's like the art and culture university.
Yeah, I looked at doctoral programs to see if I could do anything remotely, but it doesn't look possible, I don't think.
Yeah. I don't know if they offer doctoral programs for the jazz department.
Maybe
but also, not to make anyone here feel bad, but college is like $30 a semester there. So
what?
yeah.
So I would
if,
maybe make money by just moving there and going to college.
exactly. Yeah, that's why like I have a bunch of friends who have like 3 master's degrees. Like, yeah, just paid $600 for 15 years of education.
Yeah.
Amazing. I'm like, I paid $600 a day. So different vibe. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting talking about grants here too. Not to digress before I even get into talking about email
That's all we
marketing.
do here is digress.
But that's one thing I've noticed about living in Europe is that grants are everywhere. It's just in the government, there are actually government what's the word, magistrats. This is where like my like small amount of German somehow takes over my English speaking brain. There are like departments within the government, like different governmental institutions, which are just there for artist grants,
Right.
where you can apply and all sorts of crazy stuff. Every country has them. So it's a bit more embedded in the culture, like the ability to get grants, and becomes like a full-time job just applying for tour funding.
Totally.
Stuff.
Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
that's why there's so much touring happening. We were actually just talking about that before we started. The feasibility of touring now, because did you see like that Aaron Parks post yesterday that he
No.
did his tour? He was like he was about to tour in Berlin and stuff, and he just announced that he wanted to go home, so he quit the rest of the dates. And then Royce here was just pointing out there's a Lord article that she just said touring is unfeasible now, and she quit her tour, or it's just not. It's becoming really untenable to tour. I was wondering if you had any feelings on the touring in Europe, if it's still worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, for American musicians, the money for touring is in Europe. Like that's where everyone goes, and you can make it work, but it takes so much energy. And I haven't done like I don't really do tours anymore, but I'll do like a week in one club, or a week in one city, or 4 days in one city. Because for me, like, and the people I play with, like I was just in Italy last weekend playing a gig in Bologna for a few days, and then I'll be going there again in a month, or I got asked to play in like the Gran Canaria Islands in Spain for a weekend. And it's like that stuff is easy because you can fly to any city in Europe in less than 2 hours from anywhere to anywhere. But to,
$200, right?
exactly. Yeah, but to try and hook together a string of gigs is really hard. You have to do it a year in advance, and especially post COVID. And with also, like, I'm sure you all see about the war in Ukraine and all of that. Like, that stuff is happening like literally 500 miles from here. So inflation is just like, energy prices have doubled here in the last 2 months, and inflation is crazy. And so the only things that are guaranteed are like, if you're Josh Redman taking your band with Brad Meldau, like, you'll sell out tours, no problem. But if you're just trying to get hooked together a string of gigs at different clubs, stuff gets canceled all the time.
Yeah, it just gets canceled, right? I went to Italy this year and I had one gig. It was just a vacation, but I did have one gig, brought the horn, got canceled the day before.
Yeah.
Just had my horn for no reason.
Yeah, it totally happens. I mean, it's a pain, but that's just the if you're on the DIY touring level, then that's just how it goes now. There's no guarantee, which is a bummer. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I haven't done so much of those anyways. Yeah. I mean, more before COVID, and then there's like the effects of COVID are still being felt everywhere, because you have 30 different countries with 30 different COVID rules and regulations and ways of dealing with it. So,
right. It's just more stress than it might be worth in some
totally.
Ways. Yeah.
Totally.
Well, I mean, we're open to talk about whatever you want to talk about. I think one of the points I made about you, which is what Mark Schwartz told me about you before I knew you, was that you were successful with online marketing without using social media too much. So that would be an interesting thing to hear about, because we spent probably like the first month of this class just talking about Instagram and YouTube and stuff. So kind of looking at the alternatives to that.
Totally. Yeah, we can definitely dive into that first. So I'll have a couple questions for everyone. Like, first off, if you have any questions for me, like, just yell at me. That's fine. Just or raise your hand. I can't really point at you, but yeah, if there are any questions, just let me know. I'm happy to clarify. And yeah, I'll ask you to like just do some reflection and like write down some answers for yourself too. Um, so this would be something to know. Maybe take just like a minute to write this stuff down. And I would say don't do it on your phone, but like actually write it down if you can. First question is like, what are your business goals? Do you have any business goals in the music space? So this could be huge. Like, I don't know, I want to sell 10 billion records and live in a villa in the island of Malta, or yeah, whatever. Collaborate with your favorite artists. Anything. I'm just curious. Don't limit them. Just whatever comes to mind. And I'll keep time here. Okay, maybe just another few seconds. Normally I would give you like 5 minutes to think about this stuff, but just yeah, just for just for time's sake. Okay, does anyone have anything that they, or would anyone like to share one of your goals? It doesn't matter how crazy it might seem. I'm very curious to hear it.
I want to create a full set list of power ballads that people actually want to hear.
Okay, your own music or other people's music?
My own music.
Okay, full set of power ballads. What people want to hear. Okay, where would you perform them? Or would you record it?
I don't. It doesn't have to be recorded by me. I'm open to it being recorded, but in invited spaces. So it doesn't matter whether it's intimate or if it's a full arena. Just a space that's welcoming to that music. So
cool. I support that. I'm the sentimental type. I would like a full set of power ballads.
yeah, I would hope so.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
What about other ideas? What do you got?
Okay, so I would really like to do some international tours. I would like to have a discography, multiple albums with various styles. I would like to have to work with very different stuff, like be able to work in music halls, but at the same time go to the studio and work with different artists, work with my own music, work for music and film and TV, just work with different phases of music and doing different things. Also working in my own music and to the point that it gets very influential and that I have a lot of discography with the various styles, various different styles.
Cool. So I'm going to narrow that down because I love all of that. So varied styles. Like if you had to narrow it down to like one style that really represents your biggest musical interests, if you had to pick one, what would that be?
It would be Latin R&B.
Okay. Cool. I like that. Thanks for sharing. All right. Who else has got something?
Music.
Isabel.
Hi, I'd like to market myself and my voice well enough to be hired on a regular basis to sing, and particularly sing in really professional settings where there's a beautiful sound setup with a sound engineer and Also the same thing, but for songwriting. I love to market myself well enough to get hired to write songs.
Where would you want to perform then, and with who?
I'm open to it. I love solo performance. I love singing with the band, and I also love singing in choirs. But my main goal would be to, whatever those settings are, that they're in, like on, in a concert hall or on a stage or in a studio, like with a sound engineer, whatnot.
Getting away from
Does that make sense?
jet like a brunch gig. That's what you're saying.
Well, I know I still
You wanna
would
do
love
those
to do
too,
brunch
okay.
gigs, but to have the equipment to make it sound really
Okay,
good.
okay, a good brunch gig, okay.
Cool. I love that. Thanks for sharing, Isabella. Isabel or Isabella?
Isabel, thank you.
Isabel. Yeah. All right. I was going to say, who else? Or I see 3 more people, so we can go down the line and everyone can share if they'd like.
Oh, cause you got something.
Yeah, so I was thinking maybe starting a YouTube channel and like doing covers and maybe potentially building a following. Since the
Oh.
things that I create or like make a cover up.
Cool. So YouTube channel, is there anything you want to do with the YouTube channel? Like, do you want to collaborate with other musicians or use it to connect with certain people?
I haven't thought about that to be honest, but I was mostly just thinking like doing certain like popular songs.
Cool. I totally support that. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Alex?
Well, I guess my goal is just to keep making records. I just finished making one for this class and for myself.
Nice.
Yeah, I have to tell you about that.
How could you
Yeah,
not tell
and
me?
maybe do some touring, but right now it seems a little unfeasible. But hopefully that situation will get better. Yeah, just keep on doing what I'm doing, I guess. And continue to write songs. Hopefully grow an audience, cultivate a crowd.
Cool.
Everyone just kind of came up with a goal too. So if you have one handy.
My goal is to also probably eventually tour. I want to release more music. Soon an album. I just need to compile stuff I'm confident with. I always write music and then later decide I hate it, so it never ends up getting released. But I just want to get past that barrier, I guess.
Good to hear that.
To tour and build.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's like a really vulnerable thing to say. Is like, you want to eventually share your music, but you're not fully confident in it. And I don't know. I think that's hard for people to admit sometimes. So that's awesome, and I appreciate you saying that in front of everyone. And there's a big list of great things here. So like full set of power ballads, international tours and albums like in Latin R&B, marketing voice and singing in professional settings, starting a YouTube channel, continue to make records and tour, and eventually sharing music and touring. So I have 2 more questions. Actually, two more questions, and then we'll get into the email marketing thing. But it's all related because I want you to think about like what's the purpose of this. So the first question is, what is preventing you from doing these things right now? So think about that. It's a big bite to chew on. What's preventing you from doing this right now? And secondly, who is your ideal audience? Like if you're going to go through the process of creating all this stuff, who needs to experience it? Who needs to hear it? Who is it for? So again, first question, what's stopping you from doing these things now? And then 2, who is this meant for? Who is supposed to experience it? And I'll give you 2 minutes to answer these huge philosophical questions. And I'll give you something to think about too. As you're thinking about your ideal audience, you could even think of specific people, like, oh, my friend Steve, or I don't know, grandma whoever. Like, doesn't matter, but you can get specific about those things too. All right, just a few seconds left.
Time is it over there?
What time is it? 6:03 p.m.
Okay, 6 hours.
Yeah. All right, our 2 minutes is up. So I wanted you to think about these things, especially what's stopping you from doing this right now, because oftentimes we have limiting beliefs about what we're able to do in a certain space. And they're often limited to things like, oh, I don't have the time, or I don't have the resources, or I don't have the blah, 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 or I'm not capable of connecting with the right musicians. And so much of being in business is just doing things that put you out of your comfort zone all the time. Because if business was just operating on being comfortable, then no one would be successful in their business, right? Like, anytime we put ourselves out there as musicians, or we play on gigs where we're trying to meet new people and we have to present our best selves and everything, like we are always kind of pushing ourselves beyond what we're typically comfortable doing, because we know that it's going to get us further along. So business is all about challenging what you think you know about yourself in a space that's like, oh, I'm only capable of doing this. And you really have to push past that. And you have to learn to accept that part of it is uncomfortable. And part of the things that we limit ourselves to are totally irrational, because no one wants to be out of their comfort zone, right? Like, how many of you like to be uncomfortable all the time? Probably none of you, right? Yeah, being in business is uncomfortable for that reason, because you have to put yourself out there. And the more you put yourself out there, the more vulnerable you are. And that's a really scary feeling. So this exercise was really just to get you to think about, like, what's actually holding me back? Is it the logistics, or is it how I feel about putting myself out there? Like, if I was making a YouTube channel, that would be awesome. And I also recognize that by doing that, I am making myself available to billions of people, especially if I leave the comment section on. That's awesome. And also kind of it can be scary. So thinking about, okay, if I'm going into this, all the way, like, what am I really going to do with this channel? Like, what part of my personality am I really going to be authentic and sincere about, and how am I going to shape other parts of it, to fit this audience? Like, there are a lot of questions about how you might go about that. The other thing is about knowing your ideal audience is, if you're creating a product for everybody, you're creating a product for nobody, right? You really want to try and think about, who is this for? Like, imagine, like, if you're making, I don't know, the YouTube channel is a great example. Again, if you're doing covers of popular songs, like a YouTube channel is a business, right? People who are professional YouTubers are making upwards of $10,000, $20,000 a week on videos. And so if you're thinking about who it's for, and you're thinking about it from a business perspective, then you really want to be clear about exactly who it's for, exactly who it's targeted to, because everything you do in your videos, the way that you speak, the way that you title the videos, the thumbnails, the pacing, how you embed certain pieces of information there, the overall goal, like all of that stuff depends entirely upon who is going to be watching it. In the same way that like I created a specific lecture plan for this class because I knew exactly who I was talking to. Because otherwise, if I just created something that was general that didn't connect with anybody, then it would be wasting your time. So with your audience, whether it's making records or songwriting or making YouTube videos, you really want to consider exactly who your audience is, what things they might enjoy, like what these people do on a daily basis. I know it sounds pretty out, but if you start to think about them, then the way that you present your information, and again, the way that you target your audience and market things is really tailored to them. And marketing is all about reaching the right people, right? Marketing is not about convincing people they need to buy your stuff or they need your products, but marketing is all about convincing the right people that you have a solution for their problems. So like with all the stuff that I do on my email list, I am targeting a very specific group of people with my coaching programs or my teaching materials, knowing that for the most part, maybe, I don't know, 90% of the people on my email list won't be interested in buying what I'm offering, but 10% will, because I'm really clear about my language there. And I'm very clear about who I'm presenting this stuff to. So as you're in the dreaming space and you're thinking about what you want to do and how you might make that happen or what your long-term goals are, you also want to think about what might be holding you back from doing that now. Because for sure, like if you want to start a YouTube channel, you could do it today. If you want to start writing songs, you can do that today. If you want to keep on making records or hook together some mini tours, like all this stuff is possible now. So it's just thinking about what's stopping you, and then thinking again, who is this intended for? How am I going to connect with those people? Like, yeah, actually I had a few more questions related to that, but I think actually that's a good kind of way to wrap up that little piece. So before I move on to the actual part about email lists and using that to connect with your audience and the possibilities, does anyone have any questions or comments, thoughts, anything that popped up as I was sharing that?
If you never toured again, or you never gigged, in addition to what you do full time, would you still make a comfortable living?
Yeah, so it's funny. I used to make most of my money from gigging, and now I'd say about 90% of my income is from my online business and from teaching at the university. So I only do the gigs that I want to do now. So I make less money from gigging, but the quality of the gigs, it's way better. And that's actually another thing is most of the famous musicians that you see, like, at least in the jazz space, I can say like Brad Meldau and basically anyone who's not Christian McBride and not Josh Redman, they all have teaching jobs. They all teach, they all play on other people's records, they all tour, they all make royalties. So gigging is like, at least from what I understand, it's a part of it, but it's not definitely not the whole thing. I don't know, John, I'm sure you see a lot of that too, or know people in that space.
Of course, yeah. Certainly it's flipped for me now too. I'm just this is my whole income pretty much. If I get gigs, it's like spending money, which would be nice. But it never adds up now to much more than $10,000-$15,000 a year.
Yeah.
Which is nice, but yeah. And as far as other people I know, it's in New York. There are a lot of people who just get by gigging, but if they're doing that, they're either in artist housing or a tight roommate situation, or
Yeah.
or they're married to someone who has a day job.
Yeah.
Which, you know, we all know everyone in those variations of scenes, especially if you're like a horn player like me. I mean, making a living on gigging is basically just waiting gigs if you can get them.
Yeah, totally. Which is cool. You know, that's a living too. But yeah, I think diversify. I mean, it's always diversified, right? There's not just one job, and that also helps too with your exclusivity as a brand. Like if you are only perceived as taking, I mean, this is kind of a luxury. You know, I'm talking about like this after spending 15 years busting my behind, you know, to get to a point where I can play the gigs that I want to. But it's also like if you're perceived as being in that space or playing only certain types of gigs, then that also, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, oh, I want to play better gigs. I only want to play good gigs. Well, you start saying no, and you only take certain gigs, and you're perceived as being that level of musician too, which is helpful from a marketing standpoint.
I thought about that yesterday when I got asked to do a country western gig last minute. You know, I'm just going to say no to this. I used to say yes to all these, but you know, you get tired of being last call, last minute guy.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like, why would I do this gig? It's just like when you're hustling in New York, sometimes you just feel like you need to say yes to everything. So it's a lesson.
Yeah, totally. Isabella.
I just wanted to make sure I understood that. So are you saying it might be something to consider, like after kind of just a certain personal level, goal level, it would be beneficial to say no? I'm not saying, this is not for me, I'm not there yet, but eventually, are you saying it might be a good idea to say no to certain things?
Yeah, so I'll give you some more context, I guess. So I'm a bass player, and bass players are very lucky because when it comes to hustling for gigs, we are the laziest group of people, bar none. John, you know it's true. You know it's true.
You guys don't have to do anything.
Exactly. Yeah. So from my perspective, I'm in a position anyways. I mean, of course, I have to work hard and I have to play well. You know, that goes without saying. But it might be easier for certain instrumentalists to say no to certain things in order to build up that sort of image. But this is after years and years and years of hustling, and you know, after years of it's not even paying your dues. I think it's just getting to a point where you're like, do I really want to play the 4-hour jam session again? Like, do I want to be the person who always gets called for those types of gigs? Or is it okay, like, can I play twice a month, you know, and earn less money, but the gigs are way more fulfilling and they're better for my, you know, for my image? I mean, that's the kind of stuff I think about now. I'm 32. I've been gigging since I was 16, and I've been gigging and touring like full time for the last 10 years. Like touring, you know, with different bands around the country and around the world. So I've been in the space for a while, and I'm just getting to a point now where I am comfortable saying no and just focusing on doing the things that I want to do. But I think in the beginning, there's this sort of push where you take as many gigs as you can just to get the experience of putting yourself out there and learning how you function in different situations, and collaborating with other people. And there's going to be those cycles, and eventually, you know, you get to the point where you're not doing the country western gig and just doing the stuff that you want to. I mean, maybe it's a bit idealistic, but it works. I mean, actually, everyone at the top, you know, I think about the top of the jazz musicians or the touring musicians, it works for them because that's what they do.
Right. Yeah, and you meet people that are young, like just out of college, and kind of in that mindset, and they never have to leave it. And it is a luxury, usually because they play really well.
Yeah.
Among other factors, but you know, I'm 42, and it took me until now to start saying no to gigs. So you know, it's kind of different for everybody. But
yeah, totally. But I would say, like, you know, especially now, if you're in the beginning of this phase and you're trying to push your stuff out, like for sure, play as much as you can. There's like nothing gives you experience like experience. So that would be my advice. Is like don't worry about limiting yourself until you kind of feel innately at a point that it would be good for you. But I don't want to be the guy that comes into the music business class and is like, you should say no to gigs. Just because
No, like when you've hit a point in whatever scene where you've been doing it a lot and it's time to move on. So I think that's maybe what we're saying is that it's not hard to know when that time comes around. You don't need to worry about saying no right off the bat, I think. But if you find yourself, like you said, playing this long, tedious jam session every Monday night, and you've been doing it for 4 years, like maybe I'll start saying no to that. So it's like
totally. Cool. I think I'm going to move on to the next little topic, just to keep the time moving. But again, if anyone has questions or anything they want to interject with, please let me know. I'm just going to put my computer on do not disturb because it is freaking out right now. Okay.
you don't hear it.
So email lists, right? This has a lot to do with the questions that I asked you in the beginning, because an email list, it's old school, right? Email lists, like when you think about all the tools you have available to you, like TikTok, Instagram. I mean, Twitter is not even as popular as it was anymore. Now with the Elon Musk takeover, that whole thing's in question. Even Facebook is kind of losing a little bit of its relevancy. So social media platforms are evolving super fast. And, we know the people who are influencers, we know the people who have a ton of followers. And that's good. That's great that's really great for getting your name out there. But in terms of having a connection with people, like a direct connection, the email list is the best way, because let's say you get locked out of your Facebook account or Instagram or whatever, all of your followers go away. But if you have an email list, like you have a direct connection to somebody and you know that they're going to get your email, and like the days where someone's like, oh, sorry, like I didn't get your email. It's like, that's a lie. Like that doesn't happen. Like you see it and you read it and it goes away. But it's a guaranteed way to keep a connection with someone. So the email list, like if you want to make money from your online business or make money or share your product or your music or whatever, the email list, I still think is the best, most effective way with the highest earning potential. It's really just the best way to have a direct connection with your audience. So when it comes to an email list, like there are so many things you can think about. Like John, you were talking about funnels. There are always questions about how many times a month should I email people? What should the content be about? What writing style should I use? Should I use templates? Should I make it look plain text? All of this stuff, like how many hyperlinks should I use? Should I use a PS in there? Blah, blah, blah. Like the thing about email lists is that like when you're writing emails, you just need to be yourself and you need to be sincere. Like I've hired email marketing experts to write email chains for me and onboarding sequences and figure out the best subject lines and all this stuff. And the thing that has helped me the most is just being sincere and being consistent. So there are certain tricks that you can use with emails that maybe get a bit more readership. But ultimately what it comes down to is if you are either communicating the wrong thing or communicating the wrong thing to your audience, like what you want from them or what you want to give them or sell them, or if you're communicating something that's interesting to them, but you're doing it in a way that's insincere by using like cutting edge clickbait type writing, then that's going to annoy them and they're going to unsubscribe. So the best thing that you can do is just be sincere in this space. People like that, they want to feel like when you are writing them that they are connected to you, that you're not just talking at them, but you're actually engaging with them. So it's really just about authenticity and being consistent. And with an email list, right, the purpose of your email list is to have a direct connection with your preferred audience, like your ideal audience. So even if you are, I don't know, trying to get as many followers as possible on your email list, right? So you can, let's say, I don't know, like in my case, I'm also an author. I have a number of base books that I've written and sold, and I have an online coaching program that's 9 months long. People pay a tuition. It meets twice a week. It's interview based, so they have to connect with me and meet with me one-on-one. And the way I advertise that is through my email list, right? So I am always thinking about everything I deliver is kind of in that direction. So for example, my coaching business is all about developing ear training skills. So every email I have or send on my list is usually getting people to think about why it's important to listen to music in a certain way, or to help them maybe recognize the limitations of their own listening abilities. Like, it's always in that space. I'm always reinforcing what it is that I'm trying to do. If all of a sudden I started talking about my favorite chocolate cake recipes, people would not be okay with that. That would confuse them. So I'm doing it in a way that's sincere, but I'm targeting my specific audience. And the purpose is not to get as many followers on my list as possible, but I'm really trying to connect with like the 100 super fans. This is what I think about, rather than having, I mean, I'll be transparent with my numbers. I have 1,450 people on my email list. 2 years ago, I had 30 people. So I've been growing it steadily over time. And rather than trying to get 10,000 people on my list, I'm trying to focus on getting, again, like the 100 super fans who will join my coaching programs, who will buy my books, buy my video courses. And it's worked. Like, I have a few unsubscribes with every email I send, which is cool because it's people who are not interested in my message. But I have people who have joined my coaching program 3 years in a row. And it's like a college tuition to join I mean, it's not that bad actually, but there's a tuition that people have to pay to join. And it's all because of effective email marketing and getting people to feel like they know me before they've even talked to me or connected with me. That's where the sincerity comes through. So I'm going to talk about two things quickly with email marketing. I'm going to talk about how to get people on your list, and then a philosophy for actually using it. So when it comes to getting people to like get on your email list, like John, I use ConvertKit. ConvertKit's awesome, and it has so many integrations. And so I'm thinking like, how can I get people, how can I get people excited to want to join my list? Or how can I kind of convince people that that's something they want to do? So different strategies, like when I put YouTube videos up, because I have a number of YouTube videos, I just put my website in the description, and I say, if you want more info or like free workshops, join my email list at my website. Easy. For all the books I've published, in each book and on the Amazon page, I say, if you want access to my free supplemental audio, right? Because each book comes with like an online CD. I make people go to my website and join my email list, and then they get the audio files there. And I sell, I don't know, on a bad month, like 30 books, and on a good month, 110 books. And so there's potentially 30 people usually a month joining my email list, maybe a bit less. So that's like a constant stream of people who are always coming into the email list. Something like that. Putting it on YouTube. Trying to think what other strategies. Oh yeah, I used to do Facebook Live workshops for people. And so I just like literally just go on Facebook Live and put in the link. If you want, the free PDF that goes along with today's lesson, just go to my website and join my email list, and you'll get the download immediately. So it's all about offering people free stuff for me and getting them to join that way. And it took me a while to figure out how to actually connect with those people, especially because I had my books published and I wasn't taking advantage of trying to build a list. But then I started to get creative about it. And I think, John, we talked about this too, right? Like how to...
Copied a lot of these things.
It works, right?
Yeah, the free PDF or the free resources for the book definitely like, it's like a steady stream of 1 to 2 people a day or something that are joining the
Yeah.
list. And a lot of them will unsubscribe when they actually get an email from you, because they just wanted to get the free stuff and get out. But that's, yeah, it's fine. It's like 5 to 6 people unsubscribe every email. And that's fine.
Totally.
It's like sorting it out so you know you're not bothering people. It's actually kind of a good thing.
Exactly. And the people who don't unsubscribe are subconsciously committing themselves to receiving your stuff. And that in their mind makes them want to receive it more, which this sounds funny, but that's just how email marketing works. It's all about psychology. Like every time you look at an email and you don't subscribe, you are reinforcing that you want more of that information. So that's a part of it, like finding ways to get people to join. I mean, how many YouTube videos have you watched where people are like, hey, hit the subscribe button at the bottom and click the bell so you get a notification whenever I put a new video out, right? Like that script is embedded in my mind because I've heard it so many times. And people are shameless when it comes to asking you to join whatever list or subscription service thing they have going on. They want you to subscribe to their channel. So email marketing is the same thing. How can you find different ways for people to join your list? Like maybe you play a gig and you have 100, maybe you print out like, I don't know, 50 QR codes and you say, hey, this is my new single that's coming out. If you scan the QR code, you'll automatically join my email list and get a download for this free song. Something like that, right? Like I literally just made that up, but that's an example of something that you can do to get people to think about joining your list. And then when you actually have a substantial amount of people on there, then when you put something out, you put a new product out, a new CD, a new book, then you're really able to connect with a number of them and actually get your stuff moving along. So again, it's like how many creative ways can you think of connecting with your ideal audience? Not just everybody, but like the people who really want to access your stuff, whatever that is. And like, for example, if it's a YouTube channel, you know, again, a YouTube channel is a business too. Like my friend, actually, John, do you know Jeremy Siskind, piano player?
I know the name, I don't know though. Yeah.
Okay, he lived in New York for a few years. He has a really popular jazz piano YouTube channel, and he basically uses that to advertise his books. He does like a free video every week, and he's pulling in, I think he told me like at least like high 4 figures a month on royalties from his books just because of the YouTube channel.
Wow.
So his YouTube channel is a funnel that tries to get people to buy his books. And then when they buy his books, they see his YouTube channel, see how it's all connected, and then they contact him for private lessons. So the YouTube channel is not just about providing free content, but it's about getting people to go further into his personal space. So when they buy his books, they join his email list, and now he's got this YouTube channel with a lot of views, but he also has this private list of people who have already viewed his videos and bought his stuff who want to work with him. And so that's kind of the end result there. So again, just thinking about how can you connect with these people? The second part, yeah, sorry. No, go for it.
Before I forget, do you segment your mailing list for the various products? Like, do you only email the book people about the books and playing people about the playing?
I usually email everybody.
Yeah.
I have like a list of people that I don't push sales onto because it's like, I don't know, like people that I look up to or like bass players who are like 80 years old, you know, I'm like, you know, the guy who played bass with Sun Ra doesn't need to like sign up for my ear training course, you know? So stuff like that, I'm very careful about segmenting, but in general, I hit everybody with the same stuff.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just curious because sometimes it feels like such a shift. Like I just posted or sent out an email about a record, whereas previously most of my emails were about the books, and it feels like you get a totally different reaction from the list. You know, the people that write back. It's like clear that, you know, some people are waiting to hear about a new record and some people are just waiting to hear about a new book.
Okay. Yeah, because it's funny because in those spaces, I think I used to be more careful about that, but now I think like someone who cares about what I have to say in my book about developing musical skills, like they'll probably want to support my music too. They'll probably be curious if anything. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, that's where it gets down to. There are different ways of going about this. But I kind of like the path of least resistance, like the most organic way. You can call it the path of laziness, but I mean, it's really just about, yeah, what feels good and what feels sincere. Which for this next part, which is how you actually communicate with them, like what strategies are for writing your email list. The first thing that I would say is, like, if you want to know how to write or what possibilities there are, follow people you really like and join their email lists and see how much they write, or see how often they write, how much they write, and what their writing style is. And I guarantee you that they all use some form of copywriting, not like legal copywriting, but it's like copy and then the word writing, one word. And that's a style of business writing. I'm sure you've seen this, where each sentence, like, there's no paragraphs. Each sentence has its own line. And it's basically dumbed down to make it as easy as possible to read. So you can like fly through an email and have this whole story communicated to you in the easiest way. So copywriting also has to do with, there's some psychology in it. So most of the times when I write emails, I start off with an idea, then I present it in a way like, is this something that you've ever been challenged by? Maybe this is the reason. And then I provide a solution. And then you kind of take people on a journey in your email a little bit. It's not just like, hi grandma, how are you? I hope you had a nice summer. But it's like, you have a specific way of getting through it that communicates a certain message, gets someone to challenge their beliefs, and you provide them with a solution or a way to, think about different possibilities. And if they connect their success with you because of that email, then you've empowered them, but they also have this deeper connection to what you're offering them, which is great. So follow people you like, pay attention to how they write, pay attention to how they talk about what's going on, pay attention to how much they ask for something from you versus how much they give you stuff. Most of my favorite email lists will give. They'll always give you free content, and then they ask for something every once in a while. Like, hey, I'm doing this workshop, it costs $50. Like, if you want to join, just click here. Then the next email may be reinforcing that. And eventually you just get back to them giving you free content, free songs, free sneak peeks to the writing process, recording process, whatever. But always give like 3 or 4 times more than you ask for anything, because then, people notice that. People have written me saying, wow, I appreciate that you're not always just trying to sell stuff, but you're really giving away a lot of free content. So that's a strategy. In terms of people you can follow for writing style, Seth Godin, it's like SETHGODIN, is kind of like the father of modern copywriting. If you follow his email list and just read basically everything he does, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. There's a journey, there's a specific outcome that he's going for. There's also this guy, Christian Howes, is a jazz violinist. Do you know him, John, or do you follow his?
I just unsubscribed a few months ago, but I followed him just to kind of see like what his deal was. Yeah.
Yeah, and he I mean, there's a lot of emails, but his feels very organic as well. And Howes is HOWES. He's another guy who does it well, or does it consistently. And honestly, like I've been a little bit lazy with my list, but I used to write every 2 to 3 weeks. Like, you can join my list too. It's just DannyZiemann.com. Super easy. And you'll see kind of how I present my writing style and the kind of tricks that I use. So yeah, follow people you like, and basically just kind of, you could even analyze their emails. Like, take a few and just see what's the progression of the email? Are they asking for anything? Is there a theme? Are the themes connected between emails? Are they presenting any challenges? Like, really be analytical about it, because a business email is not just like a stream of consciousness. Like, it has an embedded purpose. Either they're trying to sell you something or bringing you to a conclusion, or bring you into their space more. So yeah, see, I'm sure like you probably get emails every day from companies too, like Apple or whatever, Starbucks. I mean, those emails are all copywriting too. They're all trying to get you to do something. So yeah, so there's that. Like I said, my philosophy is always give stuff away. There's no secret that I share or no secret that I have that is so big where if I give it away, I threaten my entire business. Right? Like there's no one piece of information that I possess that is critical to my entire infrastructure. No, like I tell people exactly how to work on their ears, exactly how to do ear training. Like I give them the handout, like a big fat handout that I use for my ear training course because I'm not trying to hide anything. And the people who want to work with me will want to work with me because they like me and they trust that I can take them on this journey. People want accountability, and that's kind of what my business is structured around. So I have no secrets with these things, with sharing information or giving away free stuff, because that's just the cost of doing business, anyways. So yeah.
But if you're not using Instagram every day and trying to build content that way, you're doing the same for the email list. Like you're building content. This is where you're spending your time, right? It's kind of like
exactly. Yeah, free workshop. I usually do a free workshop like every 2 months for people online. And I always kind of hype that up a little bit and just get people thinking about why they should want to be there and why they should want to work on the skills that I'm presenting for them. So the email takes maybe a bit more time, but again, it's a direct connection with everyone. And then, yeah, just finding creative ways to connect with your audience. So I said like Amazon, YouTube. If there are any organizations, like a lot of music organizations will allow you to pay a fee to advertise using their email list. So like the International Society of Bassists, like I advertise most of the stuff I do through them. It's $150, and they send my email out twice to their list of like 5,000 people. Or I have friends who are influencers who will also share my stuff online for free. And that's a way, like I set it up in a way where I share links that will get them to join my email list. So you can find creative ways to do all of these things. And again, the purpose is to bring you closer to your audience so that when you have something to share, the right people are going to be there to absorb it. So that was a lot of information. I kind of like hit you all with that. So that's sort of the bulk of what I had that I wanted to share. But if anyone has any questions, any thoughts, comments, I'm totally game. So
questions. Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
I actually wrote this question down earlier. So when I found out that you were going to be a guest, I went to your website, and I was a little like, oh, does he just perform by himself? Because like your first video, I had like a young lady sing with you, and I was like, oh, is he a part of a group? And then I went to YouTube, and the first channel that it went to was like the Double Bass channel.
Yeah, Discover Double Bass. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, is this his company? And I was like, it's gonna take too long. I'm looking for videos of him. And then I found your channel, and then I found the link to like the publishing website. So I guess I see that you've got, a few different things going on, and they all seem very interesting. With the email, I know you were speaking about like the different subjects, but with emailing, how do you keep that from getting like kind of all mixed up or jumbled up? And I guess for me, how you spend time in each of those worlds without like leaving one.
Yeah, that's a great question. I asked myself the same question too, like how I manage dealing in all these different worlds. In terms of, so I'll go to the email part first. So in terms of email, the only thing that I really segment is the publishing company. So like I have a music education publishing company. It's a small one, but we help authors produce books and help with advertising and so on. So that's the only thing I really segment on my email list, is I make sure that my bass emails or my education emails don't go to those people, because they are not bass players. So I have a tag that basically says, do not send emails to these people when I'm talking about the bass. Otherwise, on my list, like all the things I do, like the Discover Double Bass videos, like I got paid to go to London and produce 3 courses for them. And that's how a lot of people found out about my books, or that's how a lot of people got introduced to me. So if someone buys my books, or someone buys my video courses, or they see the interviews I've done online with Contra-Bass Conversations, or they see different podcasts I've been on, or they find my recordings. I would say most of the people know me through my educational materials, just because that's what I've advertised more. But all of those different worlds, I still believe it leads people to the same place. So if I'm writing about a new book I'm doing, or if I'm sharing an email about ear training tips, or if I'm sharing a performance video I did, like the video on my website with the singer Valerie, I think, I don't know, I believe people are interested in hearing about any of those things. I think once they're in your space and they're a fan of you, like they'll be happy to take any of your content. So for me, I've worked more on integrating all of those parts of my sort of musical life as just one thing. I used to be so concerned about how people viewed me. Like, am I a musician or am I an educator? And I was talking to great bass player Larry Grenadier about this recently. Oh, not maybe a year or two ago. And I said, Larry, I love teaching, but I want people to take me, as a player too. I want people to see these things and realize that I'm serious about that. And he's like, yeah, well, all people have to do is listen to you play, and then they'll realize that you're a serious player, and they'll listen to you teach and realize you're a good teacher. It's like, oh, okay. It doesn't have to be separate. It doesn't have to be like, I'm an educator, I'm a bass player, I have these video courses, I'm an author. It's actually, I think from a marketing perspective, from a business perspective, I believe for me, it's okay that all of those things just kind of come from one place. And granted, like the stuff of all of my content online is kind of like a spider web, because it's like, there's this thing and this thing and this thing, and it's all kind of connected in a weird way. But it seems to work. I don't know. So I like, in terms of being strategic about those things, I'm like the least strategic person, because I think it all kind of goes back to me anyways. So I don't know if that answers your question or addresses your thoughts directly, but that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. I don't know.
Yeah. It's clear. Yeah, I just needed some clarity, and I'm clear. Yeah.
Cool. But thanks for asking that, though, because it's always good to reflect on those things. Like, what's my image? How do people think about me? What do I want them to believe about what I'm doing? And some of that stuff you have control over, and some of it you don't.
Yeah, I gather that it's like a waste of time to try to focus any one time. I think it's easier or more of an excuse to say, but I want them to see me as a singer, or I want to focus on being a songwriter. But really, it doesn't matter how they perceive me. I just need to work on getting material out there to begin with. So
exactly. Yeah, I think exactly that's how I think about it. I think there are some advantages to presenting yourself in a particular way, like connecting with the right audience. But yeah, I think it's like there's still something about the quality of the product that no amount of marketing can make up for.
Yeah,
like if it's not, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it was because I was about to ask you a question about sort of putting stuff out there versus spending money on advertising, or just using a lot of capital up front to sign up for various lists and EPK websites and things like that. Because you could do that all week and feel like you spent a lot of productive time signing up for all these websites. But maybe the number one thing is just putting stuff out there on whatever medium you're doing. So for you, like putting educational content out like steadily, maybe it's more important than the advertising or signing up for all these services or mailing services. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it depends also on, just like how much energy I have. I don't know. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, business needs to be sustainable. So in the beginning, when you start a business, I think there's always this high from like, oh man, I'm doing this super cool thing. Like, I'm gonna throw all my energy into it. And then I think that's not a sustainable way to show, or it's not a sustainable way to build something for longevity, right? It's like this might be a little bit like woo-woo, but a business is kind of like it's almost like a relationship in a way. Like, you have to Like if you just go off of pure emotion in the beginning, you're like, I'm gonna throw all my energy into this. That's not sustainable. And eventually when that goes away, you're like, oh, well, now I don't feel like I want to do this anymore. I don't feel as connected to it. And it's like, how can you invest a sustainable amount of energy into it consistently and then recognize that when you're like not as connected to it, that's okay. And then there are also times you're like really, really supporting it and really throwing your energy into it. And that's also okay. Because the thing is, a business needs to be sustainable for the long run. So that's where all of these things like, yeah, doing a ton of advertising and EPKs, like I do that stuff when it comes up situationally, when I'm launching a new product, when I'm doing a new video, or I'm trying to advertise for a workshop I'm doing. But in the meantime, like, I don't know, the stuff I'm doing in my own life, like practicing and just teaching and all this stuff, like that also goes to support my business, because when I actually go to advertise those things or I go to share those things, it comes from a deeper place. So it's sort of like I'm less worried about throwing a lot of energy into it all the time and more just like making calculated moves in a way, knowing that it has to be sustained. Like I have to do whatever I can do in any given moment to keep it sustainable, because it's just me. I don't have an assistant. I could, but I don't. And so it has to feel good for me to like put in a consistent amount of energy, because otherwise it just stops and then there's nothing to support there.
Totally. Yeah. This is a dumb analogy, but it reminds me of a fly fishing thing with a trout. Will sit in the water, and especially when the weather is hot or cold or kind of some kind of extreme, they'll sit there and see food float by, and they'll do the math on whether the food is large enough to sustain them for the next 3 hours, or if it's not worth the effort, or if they might exhaust themselves going after. They're really good at calculating the effort to risk kind of ratio on that.
Yeah.
So, like I think about that a lot. Like,
yeah,
putting all this time and money into this one piece of food.
yeah, exactly. And sometimes it is like, I think in the beginning, everything is an experiment with a business. We don't know what's going to work or what's not going to work. So I think there's a lot of that thought process. And then as it evens out and you're like, okay, it's not an accident that this is working, right? You see what works. And then, I don't know, the old adage of like, never change a winning team. It's like, if it works, it works. And then you just sustain that for as long as you can. I'm so simple when it comes that way, but it's like, yeah, use your energy in smart ways.
Right.
And I think there's also, I don't know how many of you are like this, but for me, I'm a workaholic, so I can sit down for 18 hours and crank something out. And I used to believe that the more energy I put into something, the better the outcome was. And I realized that was a lie, because there's diminishing returns. Like if I put 18 hours of like really passionate work into something, like versus putting 6 hours of work into it, like oftentimes the results are just about the same. But I feel like because I'm more motivated to put the time in, like putting more energy and effort into something yields better results. But that's totally not true. It's like work smarter, not harder. That's totally how I view a business. Because there's a lot of things there's a lot of work you can do, building email templates and thinking about like email strategies and planning all these different things. And I don't know, it's like I kind of just deal with stuff as it comes up as well. And it just saves me a lot of headspace. It saves me a lot of time, and it keeps me having a healthier relationship with the business. And I don't know, I had a business coach that I worked with for years, and she always used to say, like, business is not the hard part. It's like sustaining your energy and finding creative ways to make it sustainable for a long time. Not to say that business is easy in any, like it's it's not. It requires a lot of hard work, but I really start to see like the most important thing is how I can sustain myself through that and keep a healthy relationship with it and be motivated to do the things that I need to and find the time for those big pushes when I need them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be, I think I've said in this class a little bit, it can feel like you're kind of scheming all the time. when you get
Yes.
music business mindset, and it's really exhausting. So you do need to find a way that you can kind of isolate that a little bit, so you're not waking up every morning like with a bunch of things you need to do.
Yeah. I mean, that's the nice thing about the European lifestyle, not to just like wash it all into one way of living, but I mean, it's true. Like basically 5 o'clock, everyone drops their stuff and they don't work more than 40 hours a week here. There's an emphasis on taking time off. And it took me about 3 years to like get down to that speed. And you realize that you can work less and still get the same results. Although sometimes I'm like, man, you guys are so sleepy here. Like I just want to work and produce some stuff, and it's not always easy. But yeah, I mean, you can definitely get into a loop with business and just work yourself into the ground and I mean, I was close to burnout this past summer, like very, very, very close, and found a way to back off, and that was helpful. But yeah,
Catching you at a good time.
Yeah, it's
And on the upswing, it's like after you made peace with it, kind of figured out a new way to do it.
totally.
Any questions?
Yeah, any other questions? I'm happy to answer what I can.
I have another question.
Yeah, what's up?
The superfans thing is definitely real. Mine have died off because I haven't put out any new books in a while, but we've talked about that here. Do you have the superfans that tell you what you should do with your stuff all the time? Like superfan suggestion, the suggesting superfan that
I
always
don't have. Sometimes I'll get that, and sometimes I'm into it, and other times I'm like, okay, it's like people are trying to be helpful. Like certain people feel good because they think they're being helpful, so I entertain that.
Yeah.
But no, like I haven't gotten so much of that yet, because usually the suggestions are like, oh, you should, like, we all love drinking beers together, like you should start a bar, like that'd be amazing. It's just like one of those outlandish like
Yeah.
like this is a terrible idea kind of suggestions. So it's funny, like I haven't gotten so much of those recently. There are always some grumblers, some people who are like, oh, this isn't the way that you should do it, or blah blah blah. I'm like, listen, this is an email list that you signed up for, and I'm giving you free content. Like you certainly don't have to use any of this.
Right.
And that's okay. I mean, occasionally I get some of those people, but
yeah, it's amazing the entitlement sometimes with
yeah.
I've had a couple of older customers, like in their 70s, 80s that are just like, I picture them sitting down in like Seattle, like, on a rainy morning, just opening up their email and my email being like the only email they see, and just spending a lot, like an hour with it, and see, if you put this page before this page, and kind of if you made all the YouTube videos match up by page number with what you did in the book. I've had a couple
yeah.
They email me like a suggestion of what I could do in the book. So
yeah, actually, it's funny that you say that, because the one email that I got like that was from a person in Seattle, and it was like, yeah,
it was the same guy.
Yeah, maybe. Like you should relabel your audio files, because then when you load them into iTunes, la 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 la. Like, well, listen, you can also just click on the audio file that you want, and that's totally okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like frivolous, pedantic things, and it's like, I don't know how much more content. Like, how much more do you want from free content? Like, this is a gift.
Right.
So, yeah.
Oh, one more or less grumpy question. What would you think is a good open rate on an email?
Oh,
what do you shoot for with that?
I'm usually shooting between, like, a good for me is about 55%.
Nice.
I'm usually shooting between 51 and 55.
You guys know what I mean when I say that. I want to be able to open it, and then you can track the links that they click on. I mean,
yeah, totally. Super Big Brother stuff, but that's how you make good business moves. Yeah. So usually 55 is like my consistent good standard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you do sequences much, like automated sequences?
I do, for like if I'm advertising a workshop, or if I'm selling something, I have a sales sequence. But I actually don't. actually don't schedule more than like 2 emails at a time, actually, because I kind of like to, I don't know, I kind of like to do it myself and go in there and tweak things in the last minute and see how I feel about stuff.
Uh-huh.
So like, so I do sequences and whatnot, but it's all manually operated.
I think that's probably safer too. I
Yeah.
did like an 8 email sequence. It all went off at like the wrong time. Like I did
Yeah.
something wrong and it was a complete like disaster that, you know, so having
Yeah.
some control is maybe smart.
That'll happen. I mean, I'm telling you guys, like you're gonna send out emails and you're gonna see like stupid typos. You're gonna send an email that was intended for tomorrow that gets sent out today, or it goes to the wrong person, or like you'll send emails to the right person, but it's with the wrong name because you had a template that you copied and pasted it and forgot to change those details. Like small, stupid, embarrassing things happen with email lists, and you see it with big companies when they're like,
Right.
"Oops, we forgot to send the link." Like it just happens. There's always a person behind those emails. So that's just part of the growing pains of growing your own list. But yeah, I mean, it's still I'm still convinced it's the best way if you want to make money or push a product out and actually have people like be invested in it. I still think it's the best, or maybe the most effective way to do it in the long run.
Right. That reminds me of one more question for me.
Yeah.
Because looking at your website before we started this and seeing your packages of like, what was it, 62 lessons or something like that.
Yeah.
What format is that in?
So I think so. It's not my company, but it's. I think they use Teachable.
Oh, so that's not your company. That's the package you recorded
for Discover Double Bass. Yeah, so I have a royalty deal with them. Yeah, I didn't do any of those, but they use Teachable and like they have a login and yeah, individual logins and all that stuff going on.
That's pre-recorded lessons that you did.
Yep.
Okay. So that's past for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, it's funny. My website is not really current. It's more just a placeholder for people to see the stuff that I have going on. But yeah, I don't know. I always go back and forth between like, do I want to be active on my website or do I want it to just be like a standing page? I'm like, I just don't have the energy to constantly update my website. Like, I don't know. I get 10 hits a day. Like,
right. Yeah. So your most active spot is your email. That's
yeah.
like that's where to stay most up to date with what you're doing.
Exactly. So for me, it's like there are so many things you could do with your business. There's so many ways you could be on social media and have an active website and do all this stuff. Like it just, again, sustainability. Like, what do I actually care enough about to do over the long run? And if I need to do more, like, can I earn enough money to hire someone to help with this? Yeah, it's hard. It's like, yeah. Just a business has to be able to operate for a long period of time. And so if I'm trying to do everything and connect with everyone, it's just it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that's
for me at least.
That's something we haven't really talked about is this we're all their final project is all to kind of just do something, something like record a record, or if it's just write one song or anything, just like kind of set some personal goal like you did earlier in the workshop. So so we're kind of thinking about trying to get it all done fast and how much effort you could put in a couple of months, but thinking about the long term of how you could do something over years is a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you have a record, like how can you use that to connect to your favorite artists? How can you use that to promote or maybe present a collaboration opportunity with someone you want to work with? Or I don't know, try and get on a Spotify playlist, or if you're writing a book, like how can you use that to get speaking opportunities or to give various workshops or apply for a job or something? Like anything you create is a business opportunity, and it should be. And John, like we talked about too with books, like, and I know you know this too because you do this so well. It's like if you put out a book without advertising it first, or if you create something and then try to create a plan for advertising afterwards, it's already too late. Like your ticket is your business. Like whatever thing you come up with, like that is your business model, and you're trying to find ways to support that song, that video, that book, that record. And trying to connect with the right people. Trying to play catch up afterwards is always super hard.
Yeah. Any other questions? Right.
So if anyone has any questions in the long run, like please join my email list. No,
I was gonna say-
you should. You should, but John, if you want to pass along my email to your class, like first off, I'd love to hear the songs that you're writing. I'd love to see any videos you make. Pass any content along to me, and I'm happy to support you however I can because what you're doing is awesome. I'm totally there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. So hopefully we can do this, every semester or something. It'd be great. It's just it's good to have guests. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Like I said, I love what you're doing. I never took a music business class before, and I wish I had. So
yeah, I mean, this is a community college, and they have a music business class. Where my friend was just posting how Juilliard doesn't require a music business class. It's kind of crazy.
yeah,
Here it's a required class, so it's pretty ahead of the game.
that's awesome. Yeah.
What was I going to say? So yeah, if you can share the recording with me later, then I'll put it up on Blackboard so everyone in the class that isn't here, which is now less than half, missing.
Cool.
Very consistent problem with that.
Yeah, it's a Monday morning. So they'll be able to watch it later and go into the class archive. But yeah, everything.
Cool. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I'll send it through WeTransfer later tonight, my time, which is your afternoon. So
But, yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Perfect.
Thank you again, John. Nice to meet you all. Best of
Yeah.
luck, and I will look forward to hearing from you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
See you
Ciao.
later.
Bye.
Ciao.